RickMuadetMuadet.com. Today we are going to cover primary lines, something I don't talk about a lot, but an interesting topic here, and you can check out on my YouTube channel a series of videos that I discuss here, a playlist with about 5 videos discussing primary lines. Let's take a look at today's example. Here is all data for a random stock, LCI. Irrespective of the ticker symbol here, what we are trying to see here is how we can use primary trend lines. And of course, a primary trend line should be connected to an important closing high. As an example here, we can see that this was an important monthly closing high. So any movement above that, a trend line connecting that line, tends to be a strong trend line. And as you can see here, once the stock went above this level here, there was this explosive move. Now, of course, the problem with chart examples is that they tend to be cherry picking, but at least they do reinforce the same principle. So even though, yes, I do acknowledge here that this is just finding a chart that is consistent, but the idea is to learn how we can use this. Here we can also see that there was a slight breakout above a primary trend line. So again, primary trend line is a line that connects an important price high. So either you're going to price highs or maybe even the RSI high, anything that is important. And let's say by important, I mean either all-time highs, all right, or at the very least, it should be 3-year highs. Now, 3-year highs is still going to be a secondary trend line if there is another trend line somewhere along the way. For the purpose of this short video, we are going to use this example here. In fact, if you go back to the previous highs here on a monthly closing basis, we can see that there was a trend line here that again was connecting it to the prior all-time monthly closing high. There was a breakout and we had a nice surge in price. So all to say, in the current market, if we took a trend line based on this monthly closing high, we can see that we can draw a trend line connecting recent monthly closing highs, and until the stock breaks out above this primary trend line, we can see that the stock is not free to move much higher. In other words, you'd need a breakout above this primary trend line for the opportunity, or at least for the odds to be there, for a nice, strong, sustained move to the upside. And again, you can use the RSI high. So we can see that this was a price high corresponding with this RSI high. So those are important highs. And any trend line, for example, this trend line breakout was good enough to bring the stock off the lows here for a nice multi-month move. Prior to that, there was a trend line. This was the previous highs on the RSI. So any trend line breakout would be primary at that time, which was this entry before the stock had a nice explosive move here. So we can also see another trend line breakout, again important high, corresponding RSI high. So any trend line even drawn from there that breaks out like here gives you an opportunity for an explosive move. Of course, all other factors that we look at also have to be in play. And again, we can see here another way of looking at this. Take a look at this trend line here. So the breakout, after the breakout, of course, we had this explosive price advance here. If you extend that line, you see that it corresponds nicely. So this line here corresponds nicely with future bounce areas on the stock. So you can see here support on a backtest, support for the lows right there. Let me take that off so we can see it clearly. So let's draw that again to show that primary trend lines are real. We're gonna do this something like that, and you can see that we bounced here with a double bottom for the lows here and here, and of course the stock had a chance of moving higher. More importantly is the recent break. So once we broke through that previous primary trend line here, that break corresponds to the highs here in the mid 50s. We've been down since then. So the primary trend line is legit, and that's for sure. Also, just a quick observation here, this was an important low in the RSI. In fact, it's the lowest RSI point on this chart. So that any line connecting this would be a primary trend line. And you can see what happens once we broke through here. So failure to hold that primary trend line corresponds with this move lower. The stock has responded by trading lower since then. So primary trend lines are trend lines that connect important RSI and important price closing highs, especially on the long-term monthly charts. Eric Mwadhe, mwadhe.com. And as a reminder, there's more discussion on this if you go to my YouTube channel and check out the series called Trading Primary Trend Lines. Peace. I am out. Mwah. Kisses. E-A-C-S. And so it is. Eric Mwadhe, mwadhe.com. Let's take a look at how the look of the taking seems like it. Let's take a look at what the looking of the taking seems like it. What the heck was that?